The Michelin Pilot Super Sport, after 4 years on the market, has finally been replaced. It's not been replaced with a tyre called the Michelin Pilot Super Sport 2. That would be too obvious. The new tyre is called the Michelin Pilot Sport 4S. The 4S is the Michelin Pilot Sport 4's, which came out last year, bigger brother. So it's in 19-inch and above. The secret of the Michelin Pilot Super Sport, or at least one of the secrets, was the motorsport-derived construction process. This isn't something that features in the Pilot Sport 4. The Pilot Sport 4S is laid the same way, or manufactured the same way as the Pilot Super Sport was. So it's got this magic carcass which should give the tyre incredible high-speed stability, good steering control, good feedback, and everything else we want from a UHP tyre. The new Pilot Sport 4S was initially launched in Palm Springs, which we were invited to. So here's a minute clip of our experience in Palm Springs. As wonderfully exciting as the launch was in Palm Springs, and we got to test the tyre on track, on road, in various supercars, there wasn't a lot of comparison driving. The only comparison driving that we were offered on the day was kind of a wet, dry car park slalom against the Sport Contact 6 and the F1 Asymmetric 3. We only did a couple of laps in each, and it wasn't really a good way to actually get much information about the tyre. The only thing we really learned on the day was the Pilot Sport 4S has a dry braking advantage over the Asymmetric 3 and the Sport Contact 6. So fair play. But we thought instead of just relying on the data there, we'd put this Pilot Sport 4S up against probably its most direct rival, which is the Pilot Super Sport. So again, we've used 275 35 and 255 35 19-inch sizes. We've got the E92 M3, and we've run both tyres for about 1,000 miles, and this is what we found. The good. Happy to report there's a lot of good in the new 4S. Comparing it directly to the Super Sport, the 4S on the road, it feels like it has a little bit more dry grip. But to say a little bit more, you're kind of already having the benchmark tyre with the Super Sport anyway. So a small improvement in dry grip is still an impressive feat. Wet grip is another league. I mean, you have to say that. If you drive the tyres back to back, it's night and day, the improvements they've made with the 4S. A lot of people thought the Super Sport was a very good tyre in the wet. Having tested all the premium manufacturers' ultra high performance tyres, the Super Sport was never the best in the wet. I think the Asymmetric 3 and the Sport Contact 6 had it. The 4S brings the wet grip back to Michelin. I think it's even probably a little bit stronger than the Sport Contact 6 we took off to put the 4S on. Incredible wet grip. A lot of stability, a lot of information through the tyres as you're getting to the limit. So in the wet, it's a league above the Super Sport. NVH, one of the most often criticised parts of the Super Sport was the NVH, which is noise, vibration and harshness. It wasn't the world's most comfortable tyre, and it wasn't the quietest tyre in the world. The 4S has improved on that in both areas. The comfort level is a lot higher, the noise is a lot lower. Fantastic. The other main aspect of a road tyre, wear. The Super Sport was probably the benchmark in the sector anyway, and Michelin say they've found, it's not something I've tested, but Michelin say they've found between 5 and 10% improved wear. So of all the key areas of a tyre, so wet grip, dry grip, NVH and wear, they're all improved. But also looks, if you're kind of into your tyres looks, Michelin have the painted velvet sidewall technology which features on the 4S, and it does look really beautiful on the car. So again, looks as well improved over the Super Sport. So with all these improvements in the 4S over the Super Sport, are there any drawbacks? And I hesitate to mention it, but it is something, so it's worth talking about. At the very limit of grip, so 8 tenths, 9 tenths, or even 10 tenths on track, you lose a bit of the granular feedback you got from the Super Sport. So the improvements in ride comfort and lower noise has had a slight detriment to steering feel at the limit. The rest of the time, the steering's quicker than the Super Sport, so you need less steering angle to obtain the same steering force. It's very direct, the tyre loads up nicely, and there isn't a problem. But at the very limit of grip, where you really want it from a performance tyre, you just lose a bit of the information. It feels a little bit woolly, primarily on the front axle, but there's also a little bit on the rear axle, which is a shame, but will you notice it for 99% of the driving you do? No. Will you notice it if you don't drive the two tyres back to back? No. Will you notice it if you're coming from another tyre like the Sport Contact 6, which is inherently a little bit softer than the Super Sport is? No. So overall, although there is this slight negativity with this new tyre, I don't think the majority of people will notice it. So how do we conclude? Pilot Super Sport versus 4S. Is the 4S better than the Super Sport? Yes, without a doubt. Better dry grip, better wet grip, better MVH quality, so more comfort, less noise, better wear. It looks better if you're into that kind of thing. So the 4S is a better tyre than the Super Sport. Is the 4S going to be the new best UHP tyre on the market? Again, probably. If you look at the German test in this year, so it's January 2017 at the moment, if you look at the coming tests, which will feature the tyres, if they're not testing wear, and if they're just looking at objectively, I think the 4S will be there or thereabouts with the Sport Contact 6 and the Asymmetric 3. If you then start taking into account wear, which very few tests do, or subjectivity, which is how the tyre feels, I think the 4S will be the clear winner. Is this a tyre without any drawbacks? 99% of people will say no. I don't think the average motorist on the road, on something like an RS6 or a McLaren, anything like a Porsche, will notice the slight loss of feedback at the very limit of grip. It's very minute, and it's only because I've had the privilege of testing the tyres back to back over and over across thousands or hundreds of miles. If you want the ultimate dry handling tyre or for track days, you go for the Michelin Pilot Sport Cup 2. This is a tyre that's meant to be biased between 80% track and 20% road, whereas the 4S, like the Super Sport, was 20% track and 80% road. So again, that slight loss of performance at the limit probably isn't going to affect a lot of people. Do we need to do a video now of the Pilot Sport 4 versus the 4S versus Cup 2? I think so, but please feel free to let us know in the comments. But to conclude, the 4S, fantastic tyre, bests the Pilot Super Sport in pretty much every area, and I can thoroughly recommend, if you have something sporty like an M3, a 911, or even something more grand, this is the tyre you want to be thinking about fitting. So congratulations Michelin, and thank you for watching. So if you've got any questions, comments, feel free to ask below. If you'd like to see anything in the future, please feel free to ask. And if you've liked the video, please feel free to give it a thumbs up or subscribe, because that's really good for us as we're just starting out in video. So thank you again, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Look forward to any comments. Thank you.